Hello students, welcome to the 27th session of Principles of Business Management. In the present module we had discussed about planning and decision making. Let's quickly recall the concepts that we have already discussed in the chapter 2. In the beginning of the chapter we had discussed about the meaning of planning and decision making. The planning premises coordinated effort towards the attainment of predetermined objectives, and it helps the manager to shape the organization's future. And the decision is a selection of course of action out of many available alternatives, and the marketing manager may be arrived to a particular decision by analyzing, evaluating, and carefully planning. And in the following session we had also discussed about the nature and characteristic of planning. Planning is a mental exercise and which involves creative thinking, sound judgment, and imagination. It always outlines the results to be attained. As such, it is realistic in nature. And we also know that planning is a continuous process and it is a permanent process and which has no end for it. In the following session, we discussed about the importance of planning. Why planning is important to the organization. That is, all the questions what to do, how to do, for whom to do, all these things are answered through planning. Therefore, we can say that planning is one of the very important action of the manager. Then the next concept, that is types of planning. There are several types of planning or the classification of planning, where the three types of planning were strategic, operational, and tactical planning, which is done by different levels of management. And apart from this, we had also discussed about the detailed classification of the planning based on different categories. I hope you all understood about the classification of planning. Then the steps involved in planning. So we all know that planning is a process and it involves distinct steps in planning. So uh, before making the plan, we have to think about the idea or the problem, that is why we have to plan, and there comes the process of planning. The various plans are taken into consideration and the best plan is chosen after considering the pros and cons of the plan. So this is the process of the planning. And for making the planning or for carrying out the steps involved in planning, the planning premises is very important. This premises is identified as the anticipated environment in which plans are expected to operate. It is uh, we can say that it is a certain assumption about the future on the basis of which the plan will be ultimately formulated. And the process of planning, I already discussed about the steps involved in planning. The steps involved in planning and the process of planning is similar in nature. And the next concept, that is meaning and importance of decision making. Meaning, we already discussed the meaning in the first session of this chapter. That is, decision making refers to choosing a particular alternative amongst the available alternative, and all the matters relating to planning, organization, uh, direction, coordination, and control are settled by managers through decision. That is, whatever we uh, plan, whatever we carry out the uh, however we carry out the functions of the management, the decision making is very important. And the guidelines or steps involved in decision making, that is how we have to take up the decision. And decision making is easier in a decentralized management system. That is, if there are different persons who are taking different kinds of decision, it is very easier for the organization. But in case if all the decision making is done by a specific purpose person, then it will be difficult for the organization, uh, as there will be conflict in the decision making at that time. The next concept, that is difference between planning and decision making. So quick and correct decision help to solve problems and accept new challenges, and Planning is the process of selecting the future course of action, where decision making means selecting the course of action. So this is the difference between planning and decision making. I hope you all understood about the second module. Thank you.